Current welterweight champion and lineal BMF champion Belal Muhammad called out Ariel Helwani for his desperate attempt to build up a narrative of excuses for why Leon Edwards got dumped on his bald spot at UFC 304 and lost his welterweight title. We're going to take a look at the interview Ariel Helwani did with Tom Aspinall, where Ariel tried to get Tom Aspinall to make excuses for Leon Edwards. Then we're going to take a look at Belal Muhammad calling out Ariel Helwani's response. And then also today an interview came out with Belal Muhammad with Submissive Radio where Belal was asked, would you go on Ariel's show and ever bury the hatchet? We're going to take a look at that as well. But in this video, we're going to brutally expose why Ariel Helwani's narrative surrounding this fight and what he believes, because he explicitly says Leon Edwards lost because of the time that they were fighting. We're going to expose why that is so idiotic and devoid of all logic. Let's jump right into it. We're going to start off with the Tom Aspinall interview because Ariel Helwani, in this interview, it was through about a 4-minute period. He tries to get Tom Aspinall to make excuses for why Leon Edwards lost against Belal Muhammad at UFC 304. Let's check it out.
I promise I'm not trying to take anything away from Belal. He won that fight fair and square. He looked great. I will forever believe that Leon lost that fight in part because he was fighting at 5:30 in the morning.
Give me a break. When I heard this, somebody commented on a video a couple days ago and said, Joey, I need you to break this down. Not trying to take anything away from him, but Leon only lost because it was 5:30 in the morning, which is completely devoid of all logic, but we're going to break that down. Let me rewind that because we got to listen to that one more time because that genuinely infuriated me right there. Let's listen.
I promise I'm not trying to take anything away from Belal. He won that fight fair and square. He looked great. I will forever believe that Leon lost that fight in part because he was fighting at 5:30 in the morning. It was okay for you. You won, but I don't know. I have doubts that the fight goes the same way if it's happening at 1 a.m. or 12:30 as you usually fight.
Well, if that is true, let's just operate under the assumption that is true. Whose fault is that? Whose fault in preparation is that? I would say it would be Leon Edwards' lack of preparation for the fight and Belal Muhammad taking the fight seriously and preparing for the time that he was going to have to fight. They knew this for months, but let's carry on because we'll get to that in a minute.
Do you think there's anything to that based on what you saw, based on maybe what you spoke to him about afterwards?
It's very difficult to say, and I think that you, as a media person, and other people in the media would struggle to get that out of him because he doesn't want to make them kind of excuses, and I understand that.
Here he takes up for Leon Edwards, Tom Aspinall taking up for Leon Edwards, saying, I think you struggle to get that out of him. I don't know that that's the case. Because his coach, literally a couple days later, I made an entire video on it. I'll link it down in the description. Right after the fight, his coach went on Submissive Radio and made a buttload of excuses for why he lost to Belal Muhammad. The guy that they acted like was no good, by the way.
But I guess you'd have to speak to him off the record to find out what really went on. But in my opinion, Belal Muhammad fought absolutely out of his skin in that fight. He looked incredible. I've never seen him fight anywhere near that before.
By the way, that was a great performance by Belal Muhammad. If you followed his career, you know how good he was going into that fight. That was a great performance, don't get me wrong, but that's not anything I didn't expect going into that fight. You know, maybe I'm in the minority there, which I am, but that was a great performance, and I like Tom Aspinall's answer here, but I'm just saying, if you were paying attention to Belal, you should have saw this coming a mile away. I said going into the fight, Belal is a nightmare matchup for Leon Edwards. Let's continue.
Granted, I've not studied his career at huge length and huge detail, but Leon looked a little bit off, and Belal was a little bit on. Like, I would never look at anybody and be like, look, that happened just because of time.
So you can see Tom Aspinall, he knows if I say, yeah, Leon, it's because of the timing. Well, first off, that doesn't make any sense because I fought at the same time and I won via KO. But also, I don't want to diminish Belal's win because that's exactly what you're doing, Ariel. And it's a brain dead take. If it was something that could be backed up, like, oh, maybe if X, Y, Z, we found out he went into the fight with a torn ACL, or, he had a relative die the week of the fight, or you know what I mean? something that you could actually back up with information and evidence, maybe you could say it and you still get kind of shit for it, but at least be somewhat realistic. Next clip we're going to take a look at. Ariel still harping on this. This is so unfair to you guys. This is so unfair. How dare you guys have to fight at times that cater to the pay-per-view buying audience of North America? How dare them make you do that?
Belal Muhammad looked incredible, so I ain't taking nothing away from him.
That can't happen again, though, right? These 5:30 in the morning cards.
I fucking hope not.
It's not fair to you guys.
So basically, Tom Aspinall really doesn't say anything about that. He just talks about how grateful he is. That can't happen to you guys again. Having to fight at 5:30 in the morning. Oh my God. One night you got to wake up early. Like, Tom Aspinall makes this point in a second, but there are people that wake up early every single day and go to work. They get to go to the gym at their leisure, go on their schedule, and they know months in advance that they are going to be fighting at this particular time. You can't prepare for that? You can't prepare for that? At one point in my life, I was getting up at like 3 o'clock in the morning going to work at 4 a.m. Yet they can't prepare for one time out of their career, maybe 2 times in their career. I understand why the UK fans don't like it. But to act like this is such a heinous ask, oh, God forbid the UK fighters have to get up and kind of rework their sleep schedule. It happens all the time. If they were to fly to the United States, it happens. When fighters fly to Abu Dhabi, it happens. It's not the exact same, timing issues, but it's just so dumb. And luckily, Tom Aspinall makes that exact point right here. Listen to this.
Yeah, it was shit. Yeah, it was inconvenient. But as I said in the build-up, I've got friends literally still to this day who are getting up and working at 5 a.m. every day, every single frigging day, and they don't even like the job. And they're getting up in the cold. They're going on a building site. They're going messing around underneath cars. They're going working in a factory, making money for other people. And I do not have the right to complain about getting up and fighting at 5 a.m. once.
Yeah. Could have said it better myself, Tom Aspinall, but Ariel is trying to diminish the win from Belal Muhammad because he's a Leon Edwards fanboy. Okay, and I know some other people are going to take another narrative with religion. We'll talk about that a little bit towards the end of the video, but let's continue.
I just don't have any right to do it.
That's fair, and much respect. I would say you're just a high-level athlete who deserves a little bit better, but I totally understand where you are coming from, and it's nice to see. Like even yesterday, you were telling.
So then he goes on to a whole nother spiel, but it is crazy to me that he came right out and said, "I don't think that fight goes the same way if Leon Edwards doesn't have to wake up at 5:30 a.m. or fight at 5:30 a.m. God forbid he wake up early for one fight. Oh my God." Well, he knew for what, 12 weeks, probably 10 weeks, I think. He couldn't prepare. Also, if Belal went to the UK early, doesn't he still have to fight at 5:30 a.m.? Or is that different for him? It just doesn't make any sense. Let me ask you this, guys. Do you think if Belal went there and he fought early in the afternoon, okay, in American time like they did for the Leon Edwards-Kamaru Usman fight, do you think if Belal lost, Ariel would be making excuses? Well, Belal, he wasn't used to that time zone. No, he wouldn't. He would never say that. He wouldn't say that's the reason that he didn't win the title. He would just be, oh, Leon won. Leon's a pound for pound. Leon's put on a masterclass. That's what he would do. Let's jump ahead and expose why this entire narrative is completely devoid of logic. The first 5 minutes of this episode of the MMA Hour, or this interview on the MMA Hour with Leon Edwards, which I'll link down in the description, Ariel is hyper fixated on the timing of the fight here. And listen to Leon Edwards' responses when asked, are you worried about this? What are you doing to prepare for this? Do you worry at all? Let's listen.
You have your gym, obviously your home base in Birmingham. Have you considered training for this fight on American time or even in America so that you're not, falling asleep as you're warming up backstage? Like, how are you going to adapt? How are you going to change your body clock?
I would guess that you would just wake up and train at the time you were scheduled to fight. But Ariel was hyper fixated on this for 5 minutes in this interview.
I'm going to adjust. I got like a great sleep specialist guy. I got a meeting with him on Thursday. So I'll figure out what he says and just go from there with my team. I got a smart team around me, and we've been winning now for like 8-9 years, so we know what we're doing and how to approach the changes, And I've done it before when I fought in Manchester, and that was our.
So first thing he says, I have a sleep specialist that I'm going to be meeting with. Okay, so you're going to get your sleep schedule on point because you have plenty of time to prepare for this fight. That's what a title defense is, preparing. You know what time you're going to go on. What if Belal Muhammad likes to wake up early and go to sleep early? Is it unfair for him to have to fight at midnight Eastern time? Is it unfair? By the way, to quote Dana, it's 7 p.m. in Vegas. I think that's what he said. Let's carry on.
3 a.m, I think.
Yeah.
But I found that out on like the fight week. I didn't know that.
You didn't realize?
No.
UFC 204, the Bisping card.
Yeah.
So he's done it once before. He didn't even know until fight week, and he still won.
Jeez, Louise.
It's crazy, right? So I found 204 now. It's going to be 304, which is crazy. So yeah, that's mad. So yeah, that's at 3 a.m. I found out on a Tuesday when I checked into the hotel. You find out 3 a.m. I was like, okay. So after that, adjust that night, that week, and got the win. And so it is what it is. Now I've got 10 weeks to prepare and get everything in order. And
10 weeks to work with that sleep specialist. 10 weeks to get everything in order.
Also, I would have liked for the fans for it to be normal time. And I think it would have been way better. But like I said, it is what it is.
Are you stressing about this?
About what?
About just the middle of the night. Like, you want to peak as an athlete. You don't want to be competing at 5 a.m. Are you worried about it? Are you stressing about it?
Nah, not at all. Like I said, it's at the start it was like frustrating, but now it's what you gotta get all your ducks in order, right? Like, what do I need to do to make sure I'm at peak performance come fight night? So that's where I'm at now and getting it all sorted out, and I'll be not more than ready.
Okay.
So he'll be more than ready. He's getting it all sorted out. He has 10 weeks to figure it out. He's meeting with a sleep specialist. He has a win prior at UFC 204 where he didn't even realize it till the week of. But now all of a sudden, because Belal Muhammad goes out there and dominates him, picks him up and dumps him on his bald spot to take his welterweight title away from him, after being undermined as a contender for literally years, being skipped over by Colby Covington so he could go out there and shit the bed and not even bother fighting. Now all of a sudden it's an issue because Belal won. Now Belal heard the Tom Aspinall comments, which fair enough, Ariel is able to say his opinion. I don't have a problem with Ariel saying his opinion. I actually think he gets too much shit sometimes. But the fact is, this is just such a dumb narrative from one of the biggest journalists in MMA, pushing a dumb narrative against a fighter in Belal Muhammad who's already been undermined time and time again. And now you're going to have some fans try to latch onto this. You already have Leon's coaching staff making 6-7 excuses immediately in the aftermath of the fight, okay? Go watch that video if you haven't checked it out. So you have Belal is now asked about it on his podcast. Remember the show. I'll link it down in the description. Go check it out. They start discussing it right here. Listen to this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Ariel Helwani is one of the biggest haters in the world, right? He's not – he knows what he's doing when he tries to bring these questions to fighters and he tries to get you to hate on him. And he's been wanting to get people to make excuses for why Leon lost his fight. Even Leon's missing, right? He hasn't gone on the show, but he's looking for that. So you're going to ask the guy that won by knockout on that card, like a moron, hey, the time change was a difference for him. So that would mean it was a time change was a difference for Razor Blades too. Maybe that affected Razor Blades. Aspinall was from there. Aspinall won by knockout, you moron. Paddy Pimblett won by knockout, you moron. And, what's his face? Leon Edwards, he hired the sleeping coach from NASCAR. But Ariel is just a pure hater. He's been hating on me this is my career. He's another one of the guys that for sure had tears in his eyes when he saw me carry that belt. He had tears in his eyes when he saw Leon Edwards lose that fight. I didn't have to go through get the belt by coming on his stupid podcast and, bowing down to him and, hoping that he would say my name for a title shot. I went the
Everything that Belal said up until this point, I agree with. I don't think going on Ariel's podcast necessarily will help you get a title shot. I guess what he's saying is maybe elevate your star power by going on his podcast. But the UFC hates Ariel Helwani. So if anything, it's kind of a thing that makes you look bad by going on Ariel's podcast in the eyes of Dana White and the UFC. But yeah, what about Tom Aspinall? What about Paddy Pimblett? They all won. And the time was the same for them as it was for Leon. And they're in the UK. The narrative makes no sense. And Belal, being as smart as he is, even calls out, well, what happened to Leon's sleep specialist that he talked about in the MMA Hour? And he's probably talked about in other places too. What about that? So all of a sudden, it's because I won. Now we got to build a narrative of excuses for Leon Edwards for why I beat him. Let's continue. There's a little bit more.
Hard way. I went the long way. I got it myself. I didn't need nobody's hand. I didn't need no, I didn't put your handouts for nothing. I got it myself. So for him to keep hating like that just shows the type of person he is. He's a clown. So respect to Aspinall. Aspinall's the man, and he said it the way it was.
Bingo.
I dominated him. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. It wasn't just. I went in there. I went into his home country. I dominated him. We both fought at the same time. We both fought at the same 5 a.m. time zone, and it was hard for me. It was hard for everybody on the card. Winners are going to win. Losers are going to lose. Cry.
Exactly. Facts. Winners are going to win. Losers are going to lose. And I understand why this aggravates Belal so much, because people acted like for years that he would have no chance to win a title. Then when he was undeniably the number one contender, they skip over him for Colby Covington, who doesn't have a single top 15 ranked win in the current top 15. Then he finally gets his title shot, and he goes out there and wins. People say he has no chance because of the first fight, which was the most delusional narrative I've ever heard in my entire life. Now he wins. There's still a lot of people crapping on him. And then Ariel, one of the biggest journalists in the game, throws out one of the most idiotic narratives I have ever heard. If Leon jumped up like Brian Ortega and rolled his ankle as they were announcing the fights and Leon lost, I would understand that Ariel would say, oh, well, maybe if he didn't do this, it could happen. But you're going to say, oh, his sleep schedule wasn't adjusted right. He only had 10 weeks. That's his fault. Again, what I said in the beginning of the video, even if this is true, oh, well, the timing affected the fight. Well, guess whose fault that is? That's Leon Edwards and his team's fault. They lost fair and square. Stop trying to diminish the title victory of Belal Muhammad. And of course, Ariel saw this clip from Belal Muhammad, and this is his reaction. I only hear one dude throwing a lot of insults and hating. Oh, he called you a clown? Look, you guys know I've been called an Ariel Helwani fanboy before because I've defended him when Jamal Hill unfairly criticized him. But throwing insults, he just said you're a hater and you're a clown. Calm down. I've never done that, even though Belal always claims otherwise. Same old, same old. The interview in question yesterday with Aspinall was my first with guests since the week before Manchester card. So the notion that I've been asking everyone to hate on Belal Muhammad is factually incorrect. I don't know that's what Belal said, so that's kind of misrepresentation. I literally haven't talked to anyone for 3 months. I've also not asked to speak to Leon since the fight. I've only had 2 shows. As predicted, I said one critical thing. I think Leon was off that night due to the time difference. Not every human is the same. While also giving Belal props before and after the fight. And again, it's all this insulting. I said repeatedly he was getting screwed by not getting the title shot earlier. Same old story. It's short. It's good to be back. Peace and love. Oh, man. Imagine saying, oh, well, it's because of the time. Whose fault is that if that is true? You're just trying to diminish his win after he's been crapped on and skipped over, and everyone was acting like he couldn't win and that he had zero chance and nobody even cared to see the fight. He goes out there and dominates him. And it's like, oh, yeah, if he wouldn't have been so sleepy at 5 a.m., his takedown offense would have been a lot better. His striking, he wouldn't have got rocked by Belal in the very first round if he wasn't so sleepy. Nothing but excuses. Another tweet from Ariel Helwani. Example 1 of 1,000 of me giving Belal praise over the last few months, but of course he throws a tantrum when I say one somewhat critical thing, which was more about Leon than him, but alas, figured things would change when he got the belt. Guess not. I don't get this. I figured things would change when he got the belt. This is a grown man here. This is a grown man. You are diminishing the biggest accomplishment of his career, whether you like it or not. That is what you're doing. You are diminishing it. This man is the undisputed welterweight champion in the lineal BMF, okay? And you're diminishing his win when everyone doubted him. Everyone said he had no chance. Everyone didn't even want to give him the title shot. He went out there and dominated Leon Edwards in his home country. Where if Belal would have went over there and lost, would you have made an excuse? Well, he had to travel to the UK. And he was on, he was playing as the away team. And Leon had hometown advantage. Would you have been saying that? No, you wouldn't have. You wouldn't have been saying that. So why are you saying it for Leon? It's ridiculous. And then one more tweet from Ariel, and then we're going to look at one more clip from Belal. You know what I did when he beat Leon that morning in July? I finished up the croissant I was eating in Paris and went to cover the mother effing Olympics for CBC. Tears in my eyes, my tuchus, contrary to his long-standing beliefs, guy's an NPC in my life. So now we're going to call him an NPC? Like, dude, I don't get it, man. You're covering the fact that Leon Edwards Leon Edwards, he was too tired, so he couldn't defend his belt. I knew these excuses were coming, but I didn't expect 3 months later Ariel Helwani's going to be building the narrative as one of the biggest voices in MMA. But to say the guy's an NPC in my life, that just goes to show, instead of, the other remarks weren't that bad. He's like, oh, well, I thought it played a factor. But to be like, the guy's an NPC in my life, no, I genuinely think Ariel was actually hurt because I think he's a Leon Edwards fanboy. I know a lot of people are going to draw the connection. They're going to talk about religion. They're going to talk about the fact that Ariel's Jewish and Belal is Muslim and from Palestine. And I haven't watched enough of Ariel to give an accurate assessment on that. And I know there's going to be a bunch of comments about that down in the comment section. And I know nobody in the MMA media would ever touch that. I don't think that's the case. I haven't seen any evidence to say that's the case. So if it is the case, it's either I haven't seen it or it's not blatantly obvious. I genuinely think what it really is from Ariel, from what I've seen in his interactions with Leon Edwards and Tom Aspinall, he seems to be on a lot of the UK fighters' dicks. That's what it seems like to me. That's my assessment of the situation. He likes Leon Edwards. He likes Tom Aspinall. He always hypes up the UK fighters. Maybe that's not always the case, but every time I've ever seen him interact with either one of those guys, it seems like he's the biggest fan, and I think he wants to have an excuse for why Leon lost. He expected Leon to win, and Leon lost, and he got dominated. So in his mind, he has to somehow rectify that, and this is his way of rectifying it by building up a false narrative that, oh, Leon was sleepy. Leon was sleepy. He had some niggles. That's what his coach said, which I think is, like slang for injuries. His coach made a bunch of excuses afterwards. Again, I encourage you to go check out that video. 2 days after the fight, he goes on Submissive Radio and makes a bunch of excuses. And now Ariel, who is one of the biggest names in the sport, is doing the same thing. Last clip I want to look at is Belal Muhammad was on Submissive Radio. He was asked, will you ever go on Ariel Helwani's show and bury the hatchet? Let's listen to that real quick.
No, because at the end of the day, people will say whatever they want to say, right? They're looking for reasons why I don't go on the show, but they're trying to say, oh, it's his manager. And I was like, no, before I was with Ali, I had a different management group, and he never invited me on the show. He never asked me to be on the show. My coach, Lewis Taylor, PFL middleweight champion of the world, the oldest middleweight to do it, right? Biggest underdog on the card. He got never invited on the show. So I think there's a reason why he's not inviting me or my team on the show. And I know he's looking for these, and he's trying to play the role of like, oh, look at this one part where I said something nice about Belal and I said this, but it's like, that's what he does. He knows how to, play the storyline like that and act like it's this or that, but there's reasons why he hasn't invited us on the show. There's reasons why he's sitting there and, downplaying my success and my story of how hard it's been for me to get to where I am today. So no, I don't really hate anybody in this world, right? I don't need no beef for anybody. I don't keep that energy, but it's a waste of my time to go on that show to give him views.
So there you hear it straight from Belal Muhammad. And the definition of the way Belal Muhammad feels, at least the way he articulates himself, which he's a very smart person. You could tell he's one of the smarter fighters on the roster is, it's like he has a chip on his shoulder. Ariel didn't invite me on a show before. Why all of a sudden I'm champion now I'm going to go on a show? It has nothing to do with his manager. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I'm assuming Bilal's not going to lie. Everything he's spoken up until this point is facts. And the fact that Ariel's all butthurt because, oh, he's a hater and a clown. Well, yeah, you're making excuses for the reason Belal achieved the biggest moment in his entire career. Of course he's going to get annoyed by that, considering you have one of the biggest voices in the MMA community, and it's an idiotic narrative. So I'm glad Belal called Ariel Helwani out. We need to get Belal on this show. That's what we need to do. So you guys need to go tell Belal to come on this show, okay? Great interviews from Belal Muhammad with Submissive Radio. I might do a full video on that. I don't know. 308's kind of creeping up. But great response from Belal. I thought it was perfect. He didn't spend too much time on it. He just said, look, he's a clown. This is a dumb narrative. What about the sleep specialist? What about Paddy Pimblett? What about Tom Aspinall? All facts. And meanwhile, Ariel's just building up this dumb narrative for why Belal Muhammad won the welterweight title. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.